This is C Slate reporting live with breaking news in the transportation sector. The American Trucking Association has just released alarming statistic about a critical shortage in the trucking industry. Reports indicate we're facing an unprecedented deficit of 80,000 truck drivers nationwide. Industry leaders are desperately calling for government intervention as the shortage threatens to disrupt supply chains across America. Now, back to you, guy in a truck.
You ever get stuck in your truck, parked for hours, waiting on a load that never comes? Meanwhile, all the mega carriers are telling the world that there is a driver shortage? If you've been out here long enough, you know that's not the truth. It's not that we don't have drivers. It's that we don't have drivers who are willing to work 24/7 in a truck without a break for pennies on the dollar. The American Trucking Association has been spinning a narrative for years, and it's time we talk about what's really going on and why this so-called shortage is hurting the people who actually built this industry.
Look, I know you've all heard it too, right? America has a truck driver shortage. But if that's true, why are so many experienced drivers getting pushed out? Why are wages down? Why are guys quitting left and right? Let me tell you something. The shortage is not the problem. The lie is. And the American Trucking Association's been pushing it for years. Every time the market shifts, the ATA jumps on the same narrative. We're short 78,000 drivers. By 2031, they claim the shortage will hit 160,000. But here's what they don't say. In 2023, over 450,000 new CDLs were issued in the U.S. That's not a shortage. That's a revolving door. Drivers are entering the industry, but they're not staying because the job isn't sustainable anymore. A driver named Mike reached out after watching one of my videos. He worked for Schneider for over a decade. No accidents. He was always on time and super loyal. But suddenly his loads disappeared. He'd check dispatch and his name wouldn't be on anything. These loads were going to new visa drivers who made half his pay. Mike said, they didn't fire me. They just made it clear I wasn't part of the plan anymore. Another driver, James, hauled medical freight. He was hazmat certified. He had years on the job. His company started outsourcing routes, calling it filling labor gaps. But the pay cuts came quick. The hours vanished. And he watched new drivers get prioritized while he was phased out. Then there's Derek, a flatbed hauler from Ohio. He hauled steel for nearly 20 years before his lane got handed to a mega carrier that filled the trucks with foreign trainees. They called it a cost-saving decision. This isn't bad luck. It's the business model. But here's what really keeps the machine running. Power and politics. The American Trucking Association isn't just talking to the press. They're working behind closed doors. In just the first quarter of 2025, the ATA spent $720,000 lobbying Congress and federal agencies. That money goes towards pushing policies that benefit mega carriers, like the expansion of fast-track visa programs, while crushing independent drivers and small fleets. You ever wonder how we ended up with tens of thousands of extra H-2B visas flooding into trucking? That wasn't just some government mistake. That was lobbying muscle in action. The ATA helped push through an additional 65,000 H-2B visas this year alone, on top of the regular cap. Also, carriers could staff trucks with cheaper labor while claiming it's about solving a shortage.
Now let me show you something. You see this place behind me? This used to be a small family-owned trucking company. They had multiple trucks, a couple of docks, and a little repair shop where the owner's son used to turn wrenches. They weren't flashy. They weren't chasing big contracts. They just did good, honest work, hauled for local farms, a few small manufacturers, and they always showed up. They always did the right things, the right way. But they couldn't compete. They couldn't match the rates of mega carriers, undercutting them with government-subsidized labor. They couldn't get freight when dispatchers were handing lanes to companies bringing on drivers to fast-track visas. And eventually, the loads just stopped coming. One by one, the trucks got parked. The phone stopped ringing. And now, this place is just dead. And that's the story all across America right now. Companies like this are getting swallowed up by a system that rewards size, not loyalty. efficiency, not experience. Exploitation, not honesty. The big boys get richer and the little guys get poorer. Meanwhile, experienced drivers who've been behind the wheel for decades are getting tossed aside like they don't matter. And the worst part is, they've rigged it so the people think they're doing a good thing. While drivers like Mike, James, and Derek get pushed out, the ATA keeps pressing Congress for more H-2B visas. In 2024, the government approved 134,000 H-2B visas, many of them tied to trucking. But this isn't about filling a gap. It's about keeping wages down. And the system is designed to make that look like progress. But we know better. Carriers are also abusing B-1 visas, meant for cross-border freight. Now, they've got those drivers hauling domestic loads, which is illegal under federal cabotage laws. Raymond, an owner-operator out of Pennsylvania, he lost a long-term contract hauling electronics when the shipper switched to a larger carrier using overseas drivers. He told me they underbid me so low, I thought it was a typo. I kept freight moving through snow, through holidays, and now they're giving it to someone with 6 months experience just because it's cheaper. Even ATA insiders admit this distorts the market, but they won't stop it because they benefit from it. And it gets even more shady. Some of the carriers aren't just lobbying for more foreign labor. They're flat out breaking federal law. There's a growing trend of companies misusing B-1 visas, which are meant for international business, not hauling across the United States. But these companies are putting B-1 visas on domestic freight, dodging the rules that every legal U.S. driver has to follow. That's called cabotage, and it's illegal, but nobody's stopping it. One small fleet owner down in South Texas, Gary Reed, he shut his business down in December 2024. He said, I was losing every bid to companies running B-1 drivers. They were accepting rates I couldn't survive on. This isn't just unethical. It's theft. It's driving real American companies like this out of business while the big guys keep cashing checks and claiming there's a shortage. I've got no hate for the drivers coming here from overseas. Many of them are just trying to escape dangerous places. Last year in Mexico, over 50 truckers were killed by hijackings and cartel attacks. These folks are just trying to survive, but the system using them isn't helping them or us. It's just about cheap labor. This isn't a driver shortage. It's a driver retention crisis. Some fleets turn over 90% of their drivers every year. And why? Because of unpaid detention, poor miles, garbage home time, and disrespect from dispatch, recruiters, and maintenance. And management. Drivers don't quit because they can't handle the job. They quit because the job doesn't respect them. Let's talk about the real problem. Mega carriers like Swift, Schneider, and JB Hunt. These companies don't just control freight. They control the narrative. They've got lobbyists pushing laws that benefit them, training programs that churn through drivers, and PR teams keeping the public blind to what's really going on. Recruiters promise big pay and sign-on bonuses, 6 figures your first year, and then have you stranded in a terminal with a half-working truck and 2,000 miles a week, if you're lucky. And dispatchers, most could care less about your hours of service clock or your home time. You're just truck number 4027 to them. Drivers had told me, once you're in the system, you're not a person anymore. You're just a moving asset. These carriers don't build careers. They burn through people. They get government subsidies, training grants, and sweetheart contracts that turn around and flood the market with undertrained and underpaid replacements. And that's why so many experienced drivers are walking away. But look, I'll be real with you. Maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. They've actually done some good over the years. They're the ones behind the Share the Road program, teaching everyday folks how to drive safely around big rigs like ours. That saves lives. It's a good thing. And they helped launch National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, giving us a little recognition in a world that rarely sees what we go through. They pushed for better parking, cracked down on predatory towing, and even advocated for tax breaks and infrastructure improvements that would help us long term. So maybe it's not all black and white. Maybe they're trying to help, but getting pulled in the wrong direction by the mega carriers they represent. Or maybe it's just this whole system that's gotten so complicated, so corporatized, that nobody really knows how to fix it anymore. Because truth is, this industry is a giant puzzle. And while we're out here trying to keep moving, someone else is always rearranging the pieces. So what do? We start telling the truth. There is no driver shortage. There is a shortage of respect. We need enforced cabotage laws, paid detention, honest recruiting practices, real wages for real drivers, and a system that rewards experiences, not turnover. We need to make trucking a profession again, because if we don't, there won't be anything worth left fighting for. If you've ever been promised the world by a recruiter only to get tossed aside, if you've watched your miles vanish, your freight get reassigned, or your job handed to someone making half your pay, you're not alone. Drop your story in the comments. Let's let the ATA and these mega carriers know we're done being silent. Make sure you subscribe and keep it between the lines, driver.